Now let's do the last unit of Kapitel 9, Kapitel 9.5. So this is just a quick one. We've been talking about this throughout, but there's actually a unit on recognizing singulars and plurals of nouns. So we'll talk about that a little more. But first we have to get into Freud, das Unheimliche was one of my favorite texts of all time. So das Unheimliche gehört zum Schreckhaften und zum Angsterregenden. So we have das Unheimliche, which is then I have them all here. So, das Unheimliche means the uncanny. Unheimlich means uncanny. It can also mean sort of creepy and different things, but in the context of Freud, it's always the uncanny. And then, so you can see how unheimlich is an adjective, but then when you capitalize it and then put the article there, it becomes a noun. So it's the uncanny. And then gehört zum belongs, and then I put to the category of, sort of makes it more clear. The frightening, so it's like zu dem Schreckhaften, so now we're in the dative, and you can see how you can do these, you can make these adjectives out of nouns, and then of course whatever you would do to the adjective, you also do to the noun version of the adjective, and so it's zu dem, because we're in the dative now, gehört zu dem, and then because we're using this adjective noun now. This N is on here because that would be the adjective ending on a dative, and it's neuter, right? Das Schreckhafte. They all become neuter. So that's why the N is there. But it doesn't matter much for your translation. Just to note that it's still singular. Maybe it looks plural or something, right? So the uncanny belongs to the frightening, as in it's in the category of the frightening, and the fear-inducing, zum Angsterregenden. So it's just the zum, like implied, repeated. So the category of the frightening and of the fear-inducing. So Angst is of course fear, and then erregen means to induce or to evoke. And then this D makes up present participle, so fear-inducing, angsterregend. And then as a noun version of the adjective, zum Angsterregenden. Next one, es geht auf das altbekannte, längst Vertraute zurück. It goes back, so it referring to the uncanny. It goes back, or meaning it can be traced back to the well-known, or the long-known, that which is long-known, and the long familiar. So now we're in the accusative, so it's das, so it's neuter accusative, which is das. Das Altbekannte, so you can say it goes back to the well-known or the long-known, and this is not always like the most clear thing in English because we don't do this with adjectives very often. So the translation might also be that which is long known or something. So this that which construction can also be used here, and maybe it makes it a little more clear. And then the long familiar, das längst Vertraute, that which is long familiar. Yeah, so with these adjectival nouns, sometimes there is no like beautiful translation, but you just get them the best thing you can think of. So you could also say it originates with the well-known and the long familiar. Yeah, originates with is sort of like es geht zurück, it goes back. So that's es geht zurück, it goes back, and then I interpreted it a little more to make it sound maybe a little nicer. It originates with the well-known and the long familiar is a slightly nicer translation. It harks back, you could say. It's a similar meaning, and maybe it sounds a little better. It harks back to the well-known and long familiar. Okay, and then you could also do, it harks back to what is well-known and long familiar. So that which is well-known or what is well-known, both express the same idea, and then whatever seems least clunky to you. And I have that which. That harks back to that which is well-known and long familiar. So any of those, just whichever sounds best. Wie ist das möglich, dass das Vertraute schreckhaft werden kann? So, wie ist das möglich is how is it possible? How is it possible, or how is that possible, or how is this possible, whichever. That the familiar, das Vertraute, the familiar, can become frightening. So that the familiar can become frightening. In this case, das Vertraute, it's a noun made out of an adjective, and then in English we're also doing the noun made out of the adjective, and I think it sounds fine. The familiar can become frightening. I think it's all right. And then we have that last one, which is a little bit longer. Natürlich ist aber nicht alles schreckhaft, was neu und nicht vertraut ist. Die Beziehung ist nicht umkehrbar. Man kann nur sagen, was neuartig ist, wird leicht schreckhaft und unheimlich. Einiges Neuartige ist schreckhaft, durchaus nicht alles. Zum Neuen und nicht Vertrauten muss erst etwas hinzukommen, was es zum Unheimlichen macht. So, natürlich, not everything that is new and familiar, and not everything that is new. So I put the frightening later. I said, not everything is frightening that is new and not familiar. So not everything that is new and not familiar is frightening. I just moved the schreckhaft to a little later, but I think you could do it the other way as well. Not everything is frightening that is new and not familiar. But for some reason, I felt like it sounded better after. The relationship is not reversible. Yeah, that part's easy. The relationship is not reversible. Die Beziehung ist nicht umkehrbar. One can only say that what is new easily becomes frightening and uncanny. So, man kann nur sagen, one can only say, was neuartig ist, wird leicht schreckhaft und unheimlich. So, what is new becomes easily frightening and uncanny. Some new things. Einiges Neuartige. So you see how we have these, they were called limiting or indeterminate articles, like just meaning like something or nothing or a little bit, all those. Einiges is like a few things, some things. So I said some new things. Some things that are new or some new things. But you see we have the adjectival noun there. Einiges Neuartige ist schreckhaft, but certainly not all of them. Durchaus, by all means, not all of them. Certainly not all. The new and the unfamiliar, this sentence is quite complicated. So this is one where you really have to read the whole thing before you pick it apart and decide how you want to even start. So, zum Neuen und nicht Vertrauten muss erst etwas hinzukommen, was es zum Unheimlichen macht. So it's sort of saying, to the new and the unfamiliar, something else must be added. Must first something be added that makes it into the uncanny. So it's like this passive construction a little bit, but I felt that it sounded better if I just made this into the subject. Even though see how it's in the dative there, it's not really the subject. Zum Neuen, to the new. It's a dative, but I feel like the English translation sounds better if I just make it the subject. The new and the unfamiliar must have something added to them. To the new and the unfamiliar must something be added is really closer, but then I think this sounds better. That makes it to the uncanny. So that makes them uncanny, you could say. Yeah, so it's like makes it into the uncanny, but then I felt that it sounded more elegant to just say that makes them uncanny. Yeah. So see how this is I just made it into a regular adjective into the translation. So the more complicated the texts get, and the more, especially with these real academic texts or these real literary texts, it's you'll have to make more changes to them to make them sound better. Yeah. So Kapitel 9.5, recognizing singulars and plurals of nouns. So we have a review of how singulars are marked, right? Singular is, you can notice them in the different cases, right? Das, des, dem, those are always going to be singular. So these are different. This is like nominative or accusative, and then genitive, and then dative. these different ones in different cases, but just to note that these will never be, you'll never see a plural after these, das, das, des, and dem, das Buch des Mannes auf dem Tisch. And then if they have an ein word with s or em, similar to these two, des, dem, eines, or einem, then it always has to be singular. Ein Freund meines Freundes, so meines Freundes is obviously singular. In unserem Haus, the em is always going to be singular. It's dative here. And then the subject noun, which if the verb does not have an en ending. Yeah, so you have to recognize the verb conjugation. If the verb is not conjugated for plural, then the subject that it corresponds to is not going to be plural. And then feminine nouns ending in all of these suffixes. We did those on the first day. So those are very common noun suffixes, and they're always feminine, and they all take the same ending. So it's easy to recognize. These are the normal suffixes. That'll be like the end of the word, the end of the feminine word. And then to make the plural out of any of these words, they all take that same en ending. So you can recognize. It's always going to be Freiheit for freedom, Freiheit. And then if it were freedoms with plural, it would be Freiheiten, and all those. So those are easy to recognize which is plural and which is singular. And then for plural, some ways to recognize that it's definitely plural is die preceding a noun that you know to be masculine. So der Mann is masculine. And then if you see die before the noun that you know is masculine, then of course that means it's been pluralized. And then die plus a noun ending in en, so that's really going to be the plural there, die Klassen, right? And then die plus an adjective ending in en, so die jungen Kinder. So that's the definite article, and then that adjective endings adjective endings we did not too long ago. You notice that you get that en ending on preceding the plural noun and following the definite article. And then the subject noun, if the verb ends in en, or it is sind, right? So you'll notice the verb endings, the verb conjugations. And then a noun without an article is frequently plural, but not always, because we have our mass nouns like Brot. You can just say bread. It doesn't have to be the bread or a bread. It's just bread. It's just the blob of bread. So, but those only certain nouns can do that. And then but all nouns can lose their article when they're plural. So if there's no article, it's a good chance it's plural, but maybe not. And then a noun with an unpreceded adjective ending in just the e, like anytime you would have a plural noun plus an adjective before it, it would be like schwarze Socken, black socks, right? And that's the adjective ending that corresponds to that, like we did in the adjective endings unit. Okay, and then this is, of course, a trap that you can fall into. The S in English is plural, right? We use S or ES sometimes, and then rarely a number of other things to indicate plural. But then in German, S very rarely indicates plural. It's usually N or EN, or sometimes an umlaut, or sometimes adding nothing. But an S is more of a genitive thing in German, a possessive thing. And then, of course, you have to do the best guessing you can, but if you have doubt at all, I would suggest looking it up in the dictionary. So then we have the end of chapter exercises for Kapitel 9. Go ahead and work through those, and then go to Kapitel 10 when you are ready. Viel Glück und bis dann. I will see you on Zoom and on the next video. Vielen Dank. Tschüss. Auf Wiedersehen.